Hello, everyone. My name is Denise Cordero. I am a holistic coach and soul mentor. You are tuning in to Diving Deep with Denise. This podcast intends to create a sisterhood, a tribe of women that gets to have raw and authentic conversations about all expressions of what it is to be embodied as a woman. And through the vulnerable sharing of our stories, we get to invite other women to share theirs, to be empowered, to be healed, and to boldly step into their authenticity and their truth. Thank you for being with us. Today, I have an amazing guest. Her name is Leslie Cabral, and I'd like to give her a formal introduction. She is a registered dietitian nutritionist, health coach, and a diet rebel at heart. I totally love the rebel thing. She's on a mission to challenge every single piece of diet advice out there. She believes they keep us disconnected from our true selves, and instead teach you how to come back to the wisdom of the body so you can find freedom with food, melt into your natural body for life, find intuitive health, and never have to go on a diet ever again. Sign me up for that one. Through her personal journey of healing her marriage, her binge eating, and a lifetime of feeling powerless, she has learned to embody her authentic self and fully embrace her inner wisdom. Her food relationship awareness system is a proven method that teaches how to access the body's internal wisdom and has helped many of her clients not only end their struggle with food, but also step into a more aligned version of themselves and start living the lives they truly desire. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Leslie.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so happy
Yes,
to be here today.
absolutely. I know I was sharing with you briefly before we got on the podcast that as I was reading your bio, I'm like, there is so much juicy stuff we could get into here, which
Yeah,
is
I got
amazing.
stories.
Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get here and decided to become a nutritionist? But more importantly, there's many of nutritionists out there. I think that you may be one of the pioneers that is taking an unconventional route. And instead of the typical traditional diet and looking at macros and micronutrients, you're talking about tuning into the body's wisdom. Please share your journey with us.
Well, I grew up in I think the foundation for that is I grew up in a family that my mom and my grandmother were all very much into natural healing modalities, and they were very much into, I remember my grandmother, whatever aches and pains you had, she would like, okay, wait a second, what's going on? And she's like, okay, wait a minute, let me go to the backyard, grab some herbs, put
Oh
it
my God.
on.
I had an abuelita like that.
Yeah, she was amazing. She was
Yes.
amazing. She would like make a concoction and you drink that thing and you were good to go. I don't know what was in it, but it worked.
Yes.
So I had an appreciation for that natural healing ability of the body, right? So I really grew up with that. And also my mom was a very excellent cook, and I just love food. I just love eating. And, and growing up, I had a lot of turmoil and a lot of things that happened that kind of left me in a place where I was really, I felt like powerless, to everything that was going on in my life. I felt like I couldn't really do anything about it, right? So what happened is, as I grew up, it kind of put me in a place where I felt like I I was struggling with, like, I needed to control something, right? So that kind of left me vulnerable to body image issues. So I remember like one turning point when I was growing up that my parents used to love watching beauty pageant shows, right? So I remember watching it and it kind of became a habit. Every time they had it, right, I would sit there and watch it. But one day something changed, right? I was watching it and I had this like drive to pay attention to when they were, I don't know if they do that nowadays. I don't watch it anymore, but they used to give out the exact measurements of their bodies, right? So I remember waiting for that. And I would, like, without my parents knowing it, I would go into the bedroom with a tape measure and I would measure myself and I'd be like, I'm not that small, right? So all of a sudden I was like, okay, you know what? I need to go on a diet. I need to be smaller. I need, maybe that's the solution for everything that I'm feeling. I need to, control that part of me. So I started dieting. And, growing up in a family where food was a celebration and, I just enjoyed eating, I just enjoyed the whole thing. All of a sudden, I was controlling food. And that was so anti-intuitive to me, but I didn't know what else to do. So I started doing that and then it backfired on me. All of a sudden, I found myself binging. I would just like go to the store, grab a package of cookies, and when no one was looking, I would go into my room or whatever, and I would eat the whole thing in like 15 minutes. I was just like, I just felt completely out of control with food.
Yeah.
So I went from a place of complete freedom with food to that. But then I thought to myself, there's got to be a different way. I mean, you shouldn't have to struggle with food like this because food is something so like it's your birthright, right? Without food, we die, right? So we have to eat. So food shouldn't be this struggle. It shouldn't be this thing that you're constantly fighting and trying to control. And, and that's why I'm so against the calorie counting and the macros and all of that, because you're controlling those things. And so I got together, I started doing a lot of research and a lot of trial and error. And I also had a mentor, and I started learning that my body isn't dumb. There's a lot here. Your body actually knows how to eat if you know how to listen to it in a very specific way. And so I started learning a system to get back to that, to open that, avenue of communication with your body. And you have to, first of all, you have to kind of, the way that the body communicates with you is through hunger and fullness, right? So I started learning how to do that. And I started paying attention to those signals. I started, getting back in touch with that because, as babies, we're born knowing that, right? It gets corrupted as, as the parents say, oh my gosh, it's 10 o'clock. He hasn't eaten yet. What's going on? Is he sick or what's going on? Parents kind of corrupt the babies, right? Because the babies, they know when to eat. They know what to do. And, but we want to impose a schedule on them. We worry, which is natural. We worry as mothers, but, naturally we know how to eat. And so if you learn how to get back to that, and that's what I teach people to do, to get back to that so that you can, get back to that freedom. So my whole thing is, you should be able to have freedom in eating and not have to struggle with food like that. So that's sort of, where this whole thing was born for me, out of that necessity to get that freedom back. I didn't want to be controlling food. I didn't want to be struggling like that.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned a couple of things that I want to tease out with you, which are beautiful because I like to grab those nuggets of wisdom that I'm sure as I'm hearing them, our audience is hearing them too. And I think it's very important. One of the things that you said was, you know, our body having an innate intelligence
Yep.
of what it actually needs. And we are this like perfect mechanism that has the signals of hunger and satiety. And unfortunately, through conditioning,
Yep.
we have kind of overridden what those signals are, you know, and
Yep.
I can relate to that. You know, I've been at the table as a child where my parents tell me that I can't get up until I finish cleaning my, you know, my plate. You have to eat everything that's on your plate, even though
Yep.
you don't want to eat it, you know, even though you're done.
Yep.
But you have to finish it off, those type of things. So we understand that we've had a lot of conditioning in our upbringing for whatever reason, understandably many times very well intentioned by our
Yep.
parents, our caregivers,
Mhm.
to sort of override what our body naturally needs. But the other thing also is, in listening to that intelligence and listening to that wisdom, one of the things that came up for me is, um, you know, when you said about the binging, and again, I think of myself and probably so many women out there that have experienced this as well, where food becomes almost like a drug,
Mhm.
and that it's no longer about satiety or hunger, you know, at least not of the body. It becomes a deeper hunger,
Right.
something of the soul, something, you know, something within us that is unfulfilled. Can you tell us about that and how food plays a role in that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that you mentioned as well, is that conditioning, right?
Mm,
So central to this system is deconditioning that. And because, you know, talking about different kinds of, there's a difference between hunger and urges, right? And
okay.
what you're talking about now is urges, right?
Okay.
And these urges are, and that's where the distinction comes. Um, Learning how to distinguish the urges from the true physical hunger is where the key is. So
Okay.
when I talk about urges, I'm talking about what they call emotional hunger, right? So growing up, and I'm guilty of this, we weren't taught, right, to feel our feelings, right?
Oh, that's a good one.
And so the way that we do it, we eat to get out that negative emotion, right, as fast as possible. Or a lot of us, what we do is we eat to get to this numb place where we just don't
Wow.
feel anything,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So, and the other type of eating is habit eating, okay, where you might, let's say, you wake up in the morning, you say, okay, I have to be at work at 8 o'clock, and I have to eat breakfast before I get to work, but you're really not physically hungry. It's a habit, right?
Okay.
You have a habit of getting up and having breakfast, and you don't even, a lot of women that I work with, they don't even consider if they're hungry or not before they eat. It's sort of like you go on automatic. And I had one client that she went to the bank every Wednesday, and she had to make a deposit for work. And
Okay.
every time she would get in line, she used to be right next to a bakery, right? So she had a habit of going to that bakery to pass the time while she was standing in line, right? So she would get her donut and get in line. And that was her habit, right? And she didn't consider, do I actually want that donut? Am I actually hungry for that donut? It was kind of a habit, right? So the same thing with, like, a lot of people struggle with snacking too, right? So just because it's like it's break time at work, you have to have a snack because everybody else is having a snack, right? It might have been a donut, 20 years ago, but today it's like a protein bar, right? But it's the same idea. right? So people stop checking in for hunger. They just go on this habit, right? So one essential thing to the system is to be able to distinguish that. And that's when things change. Does that answer your question?
Makes total sense. Makes total sense. What I heard is a mindfulness practice.
Yeah.
Basically, it's sort of taking that moment to pause and ask ourselves the question, am I truly hunger or is this something else?
And that's where the freedom is, because you're not telling yourself, I can't have that donut. If you really want that donut, you can have that donut, right? But what you have to do is to become conscious of your eating decisions. And then that's where freedom begins, because you're not being controlled by the environment just because you're at the bank, you're getting that donut, or just because you got up and you got to be at work and you eat, you don't want to eat on the run or whatever. You're not, oh, I have a meeting later on, I'm not going to get a chance to eat, so you eat now, even though you're not hungry at all.
Yeah.
So taking that moment to in my opinion, taking that moment to check in with yourself, and you're not going to die, right? You can delay eating for an hour, right? So you checking in with yourself is a lot better to me than trying to follow a meal plan with stuff that you don't want to eat, right? Because you're in a place where you've put on so much weight that now you have to force yourself to do things that don't feel good to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. There was another part in your story as well that struck me, because I think that, when we talk about epidemics of obesity and chronic illness and disease, I think that amongst women, there is an epidemic of the way that we see ourselves and the shame and the guilt that we have around our bodies. And
Yeah.
there too, there has been a strong correlation with the images that we see at an early age. We're constantly being bombarded through magazines, social media, all different types of TV shows, programming, or whatever the case may be, of what is ideal or what is acceptable or what is considered beautiful in terms of body shape.
Right.
And that's a huge problem that has existed probably from the beginning of time.
Oh.
How do you help your clients to come to a place of self-love and body acceptance when it doesn't fit the norms of our society? Not everybody is a size 0.
Right, exactly. See, because first of all, I come from a completely different place. I was actually, that reminds me, I was actually talking to a fitness coach like about a week or so ago. And she was talking about how she helps people to change their body shape. And that struck me like, ugh, that just kind of struck me in a very bad way, because it's not about that. It's the way that I come from is we all have our natural body, right? It's a way to something, our bodies, like somebody might be, naturally a size 0, and that's where they go to. Somebody else might be naturally a size 4 or a size 8 or whatever, right? But the point of this is that our goal is to get you to your natural body. We're not aiming to be like Jennifer Lopez or, Burt Reynolds or whatever is the image person nowadays.
Yeah.
That's not my goal. My goal is for you to come back to your natural body, right? And your natural body is that body that doesn't have the excess weight that you're uncomfortable with, right? Whatever that ends up being. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's not about trying to fit an image of what you see. It's about coming back to what's natural to you, right? And we naturally know what that is. You know what that is. I don't know what that is for you, right? I don't know what that is for my client. But as you work through the program, your body will naturally melt and get there, right? So I'm also not, there's a big movement now called HAES, which is health at every size. So a lot of people have the other extreme as well, you know, saying that obesity is, that's the way they are. That's the way, you know, that's my natural body, right? But there's a difference, right, between not being how, for lack of a better word, being injured by the dieting industry and having such an injury that you're carrying with you that you just kind of like, you know what, I don't want to do anything. I just don't want to deal with eating. I'm just gonna, you know, that's it. I don't want to hear anything about it. I just, you know, this is me, and this is who I am. And to me, that also is the other side of that, right? Where you're completely avoiding coming back to your true self. So there is a middle ground where you naturally fall into your natural body as opposed to completely avoiding the issue, right? So those are the extremes that I bring people from, right? You're not aiming to be like somebody else, but you're also not giving up, right? So my thing is, there is a way to be in your natural body, to live in your natural body peacefully, gently. You don't have to be, you know, doing these extreme things. And you know, I heard somebody else say, oh, I want to go into an ice bath. I don't know if you heard about that. That's the newest thing. They go into an ice bath.
Yes.
And or, you know, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning because you have to work out. I mean, all of those extreme actions to me, it doesn't feel good to me, because to me it feels like you're really not doing what's natural for you, right? So there's a gentle way of doing this. There's a way that's intuitive, that feels good to you, and that's what I'm about.
Yes. Thank you. So another thing that I'm getting from what you're saying a lot is also about natural. It's
Yes.
natural body, natural relationship. And I think that that's important. Some would say, though, you know, as you know, one of the most important tenets of nutrition and our relationship to what we put in our bodies is food. So food is at the center of things. And one would say that a lot of our food is unnatural. What do you teach, or what do you educate your clients in terms of not just their food intake and their signals of hunger and satiety, but the quality of the food that they eat?
That's an entirely other thing. You see, there's the coming back. I don't like to say so much, you know, people understand weight loss, but to me it's more like melting into who, you know, where your body is comfortable at,
Yes.
as opposed to you know, that forceful trying to fit into that mold, like we just talked about. That weight loss part has nothing to do with the quality of the food that you're eating. So for me, phase one is for you to, you know, address that relationship that you have with food, right?
Okay.
That's getting you in trouble. And part of that, part of the process is also addressing what the body wants to eat, right? And sometimes one of the things that I do as well is I decondition people from that dieting mentality all of us have it. It's sort of like it's part of who we are, because there's so much out there. There's commercials, there's TV always bombarding us with all kinds of different information that this is good, this is bad, right? So you kind of lose yourself in that. So the method that I teach people is that you have to decondition that dieting mindset, right? To get away from that and kind of come back to the fact that your body can actually tell you what you want to eat. So part of this process that I do is instead of trying to figure out, and make rules for yourself about eating, right? You actually listen. For example, one of the things that I teach my clients is when you're at the restaurant, you open up a menu and you look at it, right? Are you thinking of, oh, this is low calorie. How many calories are in this? Maybe I should have the fish today because I pigged out yesterday, or maybe I should have a salad. That would be the best thing for me right now because I want to lose some weight. What is it that you really want, right? Looking at the menu, right? And this is a process, of course. What is it that feels, what is your body calling you to, right? And not ignoring that, right? So that's part of the process. But once you go through all of that, then after you address your food relationship and all of those things, then you can actually upgrade the quality of the things that you eat, right? Still respecting what it is that your body wants, right? If you don't like chia seeds, don't have chia seeds, right? Just because there's a huge thing on the news that chia seeds will change your life forever, it does. Do you like chia seeds, right? Some people don't even ask themselves that, right? So in my case, for example, now that I've gone through that journey, I like to buy higher quality food. So I go out of my way, right, to get organic food, to get things that are handled properly. So I'm careful about the things I buy. But that's a whole another thing, right? But first, the foundation of your relationship with food, that needs to be addressed before anything else. And a lot of those things sort themselves out in that process.
Okay.
And the quality of your diet improves naturally as a result of addressing that relationship that you have with food.
That's great. Thanks. So if I understand correctly, Leslie, I think that one of the things that your clients learn foundationally is to remove the labels, the traditional labels that we have with food, as in, this is off limits, this is good for you, or this is super good for you, this is a super food, or this is bad, or this is good. It's not bad, good, or super, or non-super. It's food.
Right.
It's just food. Okay.
Right.
Good to understand. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great. Now, is there any type of exercise or movement that is involved in your program, or is it solely focused on this relationship with food and changing our sort of coming into balance and into wholeness with that relationship?
I think, when it comes to exercise, my philosophy on that is that it has to be something that feels good primarily, right?
Yes.
And what happens to a lot of my clients is that they were forcing themselves to, go to the gym on Monday and Wednesday and whatever, 5 times a week because, they heard that that's what they need to do to lose weight, right? So instead of that, my focus is on enjoyable things that you enjoy doing, right? And naturally, you're going to find those things instead of, you know, because when you come from a place where you're forcing things, it's a completely different focus, right?
Yes.
Because what a lot of people do as well is they use exercise to burn calories, right? So
Correct.
they overeat and they say, oh, I got to go to the gym tonight because, you know, I ate a piece of cake or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I gotta burn that off. Okay. So that entitlement of, you know, you have, okay, or you go on a hike and you say, oh, now I can eat a big meal because I've had, you know,
Right.
I worked out, right?
Yes.
So you have to earn that food. And none of that is true, right? Good, because when you use exercise to burn calories, or you use exercise as a crutch, right, to eat more, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're putting yourself in a position where you're dieting. You're actually dieting because you're using exercise as a form of a diet.
Correct. Yeah.
So that part of it, you just have to put that aside and kind of come back to what feels good instead of that forceful thing, instead of using exercise. And the thing is to, once you start fixing your relationship with food and that dynamic that you have with it, these things start changing. Right? So I don't believe in, you know, workout plans where you're forcing yourself to go to the gym this many times a week and you know, and so I think that's counterintuitive. So
Yeah.
it kind of
Thank you.
sets yourself up for failure if you keep doing that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Leslie. I'd like to move us into the next sort of section of our episode, which is I call the diving deep questions. So the first question that I have for you is, what is a lesson that you've had to learn the hard way?
Let's see. A lesson that I had to learn the hard way. Let me think about that. I think, you know, that I'm actually thinking of when I was, you know, growing up in the environment that I grew up in, that I kind of became a rescuer for my family. I became this problem solver, and you know, whatever went wrong, there I was fixing it. And I realized that I can depend on other people, that I don't have to do it all. And that was a big lesson for me, because I realized that I don't have to be that person who is alone, right? I'm not alone. And asking for help and accepting help was a big lesson for me.
That's a beautiful one. And I'm sure all of us need to hear that
Yeah.
and remember that, because at one point or another in our lives, we've probably gone into that role.
Yeah.
You know,
Especially us women, right?
especially women. Yeah,
Yeah.
you said it. Especially women that feel like this a sense of duty and responsibility to our families, and we have so many roles as sisters, as mothers, as, you know, caretakers, as daughters, you know, wives. We're wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah.
We're wearing a lot of hats, definitely. So thank you for that. My next question is, what is the hardest thing you've ever had to do in your life, and how did you overcome?
I think the hardest thing I've ever done was when when my husband got diagnosed with a spinal cord tumor about 12 years ago,
Yeah.
that completely, I hit rock bottom at that point. Our marriage was in complete disrepair. You know, he became very depressed because he went into it riding, you know, a bike for 30 miles, and he came out of it not being able to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So I think the hardest thing I've had to do was to heal from that, in the sense where we had to kind of repair our whole dynamic. And we had to relate to each other. I had to, you know, because like we talked about before, I grew up in an environment where you didn't express your feelings. So the
Yeah.
only feeling that I really knew was anger. That's the only thing. Like, you were upset and you expressed yourself loudly, and you know, you told people what time it was, and that was the end of it, right? We never expressed, you know, this hurt me, right? And communicating in that way, as opposed to an aggressive way, right? So I
Right.
had to relearn how to communicate to repair our marriage. And so that was a huge growth for me, to be able to express more than just one emotion.
Yeah. That's amazing and empowering as well, to be able to, yeah, to put words to the things that we're feeling and not repress them and not swallow all that.
And
But
ask for what you need. That was a
yeah,
big one for me, asking for what I need.
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
like,
that's,
he should know, you know? No, he doesn't.
he doesn't. Yeah, that's true. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's really, 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 really a good one. Yeah, I recall not too far in the far, far future, um, I was having a conversation with someone and they asked me, what is it that you need? And it took a moment. I took
Never
a,
thought of that.
and I started bawling my eyes out. I was just like, I don't think anyone has ever asked me,
Yeah,
what do I need?
yeah.
Or giving myself the permission to even say, I need this, right?
And that applies to food as well, right?
Yes.
You never ask yourself, what do I need? What
Yeah.
what feels good to me? That's a question that you just don't ask,
Yes.
right? You most people just follow rules. That's what
Wow.
I'm supposed to be eating. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. But hold on a second. Do you want that?
Yeah.
What do you need?
Yeah. And I have to say that that very question doesn't seem like much,
But it's huge.
but it is huge. Like,
Yeah.
I will never, ever, ever forget that. And the place from where I come from when I need to communicate something is so different today because of that very question.
Yeah.
Um, so thank you for highlighting that, because I think that one is a big one. It's a
Yeah.
really, really big one.
It's pretty big, you know. Most people go through life not asking that question. So
Yes.
it's super, super important.
Yeah. So my next question is about service and contribution. And I think this is important as a community here, and this tribe that we're creating through Diving Deep is, you know, we've invited so many nutritionists and healers and light workers and coaches. And we are trying to transcend and to elevate our conditioning or the limiting beliefs and the old mindsets that are no longer serving us, and hopefully doing that with others. What kind of legacy or contribution do you want people to remember you for?
Exactly this, I think what I do with people is to most importantly eliminate the limiting beliefs that they have, not only about themselves, but about who they have to be in life.
Yeah.
And and what they have to do, what they have to eat, what they have to, how they have to live their lives, right? So that my foundational goal is for women to have freedom when it comes to being who they are, and freedom when it comes to eating, and liberate themselves from all of these expectations that don't align with who they are.
Yeah.
Not only when it comes to eating, but as a person. And it's a journey that starts with food, because food is present in our lives every single day, right? You have to eat, right? So I think using food to start that journey is sort of foundational. Once you transform that, other doors open, and you start healing in different ways that you don't even expect. Like for me, it started with, healing from the binge eating and healing from, feeling out of control. But now I realize that the powerlessness that I felt around food was actually a powerlessness that I felt about life. I felt like I couldn't really I felt like life happened to me.
Yes.
And a lot of people feel that way about food as well, right? They're powerless when it comes to food. They can't do anything about it. They have to control it because they don't, that's something that they don't have any power over.
Yeah.
And so to me, that was something that transformed not only my relationship with food, but also transformed, now I realize, as I grew through the process, it transformed my relationship with myself and my life, that I no longer feel powerless, not only when it comes to eating and my body. I no longer feel powerless when it comes to life. I have control over my life. I can do things to change things. I can make different choices, right? I have choices. For a long time, I didn't know I had choices.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? I didn't think I had choices.
It's incredible. Yeah. Yeah. I can remember so many times that I myself didn't know that I have choice, or that I had the permission to do certain things.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you. Now, on this quest and in this journey to us being, more authentic and stepping really into who we are, there's always this dance and this balance between braving it, braving to be that authentic, braving to be ourselves, and that pull to sort of the expectations and that comfort zone and all that conditioning that were so used to for so many years. Would you be able to share with us one to three tools that you use whenever you get that pull to be that old self, to center yourself, to ground yourself in your truth and your authenticity?
I think, you have to get to a point where staying where you are is more painful than doing something out of your comfort zone. So I always remember that comfort zone, and I actually had it up in my office like last year, but I took it down. But it was this person that was inside this little fence, right?
Okay.
just locked in and it said comfort zone, it limits you to stay there. And so if you want to create the life that you dream of, you know, that life that you, when you're by yourself and you're thinking and you're complaining, you know, I wish things were different. And if you are able to step out of that comfort zone and do little things, it doesn't have, and that's the thing. I think most people think that they have to take these huge steps, right, to get out of their comfort zone. But if you take little steps, if you say, okay, today I will do this little thing differently, I can do that. What feels doable to you, right? As opposed to having this big, huge thing that you're like, oh my gosh, that feels so overwhelming. And so breaking things down and thinking of yourself, okay, all right, what can I do today to step a little bit out of that? What feels doable to me? And taking that little step. And then the next day you're like, okay, I've done that. That felt okay. I didn't die, right? Maybe I can do one more little thing tomorrow. And then, you know, as you get those wins and as it feels good to you, then you start getting momentum, and that's motivating. And that's how that's how I keep going for myself. That the one little step at a time.
That is awesome. Thank you. Are there any last words of wisdom or tiny nuggets that you want to share with our audience? And as well, how do we get in contact with you? How do people reach out to you?
You can look me up on Instagram. As we're talking about, I'm kind of brand new to Instagram, so my followers are tiny right now because I just started on Instagram. I was more of a Facebook person, but there's a Calendly link on there that you can book a strategy call with me, and we can talk and see where you're at, and you know, and see how I can help. And you know, it's a free session, and we can chat and see where it goes. And you know,
we'll definitely drop in that link for Facebook and Instagram on our episode information. Any last words you have for us?
I think, you know, that now it's what we're starting April already, and there's a lot of people that are kind of feeling, okay, you know, my New Year's resolutions didn't come through, and they're feeling like really, you know, beating themselves up really. And I think the most important thing to do is to kind of get away from that self shame, because that, I think that keeps us stuck where we are. And you know, without the right tools, there's no way for you to have the ability to move forward. So I think instead of thinking about yourself as having a character flaw, think of it as it's a skill that I have to learn.
That's important.
Right? So that is completely different than thinking there's something wrong with me, right?
Yeah.
It's simply a skill that you have to learn.
That is great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Leslie, for coming on and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and some of your tools and practices. So we'll definitely drop in all of those links for our audience to get in touch with you if they'd like to. For everybody that's tuning in to Diving Deep with Denise, thank you. Be sure to like and share, subscribe on any channel you may be watching this. We'll be on YouTube, Spotify, I believe Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and we'll see you next time. Thank you and
Thank
goodbye.
you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes.